Hello and welcome to a new video about MEIOU and Taxes for Europa Universalis. Today I'm going to show off the major changes for the Alpha 19, which is coming out today. And we're going to start to look at Tunis, which is just one state of basically everyone, because the first feature I want to show applies to every state on the map. So if we look into the state of Tunis, we can now see a button for edicts, and we can select edicts for each state in our country. So we could also change edicts for example, the state RS here. But let's stick to Tunis here. And what we can do here is different edicts with different effect. For example, we only have 4 available currently, which is, for example, missionary strength, loyalty improvements at a cost, but also, for example, promoting local commerce in the state. And this one has also an impact on the sector score, which is promoting trade even further. Now, all of these come at a price. They have, for example, the promote local commerce one has 0.12 diplomatic points per year per development in the state. If we look at this state, it has 51 development, therefore it's not necessarily cheap, and you maybe want to only use them for certain occasions. For example, if you want to grow a city, you maybe want to have, of course, the correct leader, which needs high administrative skill, but then you would get resident immigration and burger immigration into the city. And you can do the same for peasantry. You can have other effects like centralization, where you can get state reach at the cost of loyalty from your nobility or all the other estates. Therefore, have fun playing around with them, and well, be careful not to waste all of your manpower, not manpower, but mana on these kind of edicts. And on that occasion, we can also point out that, for example, for Tunis and all the North African countries, something else has changed. If you want to go into diplomacy with the Sahara, and especially south of the Sahara, if you, for example, want to interact with Khan and Borno here, you're going to have a problem, because first of all, the range is, of course, not far enough, but also you get a tooltip now: the Sahara is too great of a barrier for us to interact with rams across the desert. So this is pointed at blocking cross-Sahara alliances. For example, what most of the time happens is, for example, an alliance between Fez or Morocco and Mali, which, for example, has an impact on Portugal and Castile when they were trying to get into North Africa. So there's definitely now a block in diplomacy here for a while. I think it's running out in the 1600s or something like that. So in the first centuries, you are not allowed to directly interact. However, you can still conquer your way down there and therefore get alliances or get vessels or whatever you want to do there. Now, let's get back to the next feature. Here we are looking at Hungary. So why did I pick Hungary? It's a large country, and it's a country which is very locked into strong nobility. For example, they have 91% power here. And the main feature I want to show now is the civil war feature, which has been introduced with this new version. Now, in the case, for example, we want to do something which is going to anger the nobility quite a lot. For example, we are going to expropriate land, and we are going to take away farmland from them, and we are going to basically take the maximum amount we could, which is 50%. And let's continue with the plan. And if we prepare that as a reform, we would now see that there is a minus 80% loyalty drop. So the loyalty losses from, for example, expropriations have been increased. Therefore, it's no longer possible to grab that much property in the early game without angering them that much. Now, it also tells us now that there is a threat of civil war, and exactly that we want to force. So we are going to click it here, even though that would be a very stupid thing to do. And now we can look what happens. And immediately our country is getting plunged into a civil war. And as we now can see here, half or even 2/3 of our country switched side to the rebel side, and we have to face or defeat them. And one very important feature here is that the country, okay, we can of course loot our own territory, that's a very important thing. So if you run into a civil war, expect that you cause a lot of devastation. We will call what we can. Because you have to take over states or provinces to then hopefully defeat the rebellion at some point. It's not going to be that easy because one of the major war score sources is show superiority, so we have to defeat them in battle. But I want to just show one thing here. If we take over a province, it's going to change side here. So let's just wait for it here. And therefore the civil war is going to be a huge back and forth unless you can severely crush them in battle, which won't be that easy. Therefore, be careful with causing civil wars. And also it only applies for countries or states larger than 4 provinces. If you are smaller than that, you're going to get hit with other effects. So don't think that you can just reform like crazy as a minor nation. That will also not be possible. You really have to take care of the loyalties of your estates, so that you, well, have to sometimes bribe them to be loyal or stay happy again, and not just breeze through all the reforms while having the nobility, for example, at 0 or constantly 0 loyalty. Now, siege should be almost be done, and then we can see the real effect here. So, for example, Somoji currently, if we look at the province, has already a trauma of 20% because we are in the early game, so that's still from the plague. And now, as we can see here, now it switched side. I don't think the trauma effect has yet been added here, but if you go for higher than light looting, definitely expect some severe effects from plundering. Now, another effect we can see is, for example, if we go to -3 stability, which happens a lot when you are at war, you're also going to have an effect on your trauma, which is going to decrease highly if you don't have a stable country. For example, now as we can see here, stability gives 0.09, which is almost eating all the negatives, decreasing factors. So the trauma is going to decrease extremely slowly if you have an unstable country. It might even increase in certain cases if you are, well, not taking care of your country anymore. And if you defeat the rebellion, for example, by going into battle, so for example, we can't defeat them here because there is a fort in between. So we have to take the fort until we can reach their armies. And they are going to take these provinces from us, which are going to flip to their side. So be really careful here. If you can defeat them militarily, you will survive. You can even take some privileges, like 1 or 2 from them here. But if you lose, you will also give them concessions like privileges. Therefore, be careful. Make sure if you enter into a civil war that you are sure that you can win it. And with that, we are going to the next feature. Here we are in Genoa. Genoa is one of the trade republics, or generally just one of the republics of the game. And the republics have different idea groups now, so feel free to check them out. They definitely have some stuff in here which is really spicy, for especially targeting the burghers, but also targeting elite power from wealth, for example, pushing your burghers into a power position in your state. But I didn't only pick Genoa to show off some stuff regarding a republic, but also show off some stuff in general for Italy. Now, Italy generally has some flavor or some changes to it. Therefore, like interactions with the papacy has been changed. In case that you, for example, played as Naples and you one sec. What is the tag of Naples? Ah, Kingdom of Naples. Forgot. Now, if you, for example, played as Naples, you maybe want to subjugate the Papal States, which didn't do much earlier, but now you have an effect. When you do it, you have more impact on the papacy itself, on the controller of the papacy. You can dictate who is going to become Pope, therefore have more impact on the general direction of Christendom if you want that, but also it has, of course, some negatives. So play around and check it out. But if you want to go into the Italia or into late game Italy, you definitely have to face the papacy at some point and therefore decide how you want to interact with them. There are also, of course, changes to Venice as a republic, but also other things in northern Italy to just balance out the flavor or fix stuff which wasn't working properly, and also, of course, the interaction with the HRE. If we talk about the HRE, we can switch to Bohemia. Just to, normally if you, for example, play an HRE campaign, you want to play as Austria or Bohemia. And one of the things you were constantly running into was, for example, the casus belli, which was against holding imperial territory. So, for example, that you could take from France and things like that. It was not working properly all the time. For example, if someone was a personal union under someone who is not in the HRE, you had problems of getting taking that stuff from him. So it has been smoothed out. Some like edge cases have been ruled out, but also all the councils which you are calling as the empire, or rather the Kaiser of the empire, like Jan Hus or dealing with all the heretics, have been fixed or have been adjusted, because sometimes there were issues where you run into certain edge cases or that you didn't see the votes which were happening. All of these things, of these small things, have been addressed, and therefore HRE is even better now and even more fun. Therefore, feel free to check it out. And we jump into the next state or country, which is going to be one of the Holy Orders. Here we are looking at the Knights Hospitaller, or the Knights in general. Now, in case that you want to play them, of course, this campaign has been cheated, and I just want to show off what can happen or what you can do now. If you want to play something regarding Crusades and going into the Holy Land, all the Crusader States have been gotten unique ideas. So you have unique Crusader States in North Africa, you have one in Egypt, and you of course have the Kingdom of Jerusalem, which normally you could form if you, for example, were one of the remaining holy orders like the Knights or the Cyprus. And now what you can do, or what you get if you do it, and if you manage to establish, for example, or reclaim the King of Jerusalem. So re-establish is if you, for example, France, and you conquer into the territory here, you can recreate it and therefore make a vassal out of it and have a very powerful vassal with unique ideas. Or you could play it for yourself. And if you want to recreate it, for example, as one of the successor states, which would be like Cyprus or the Knights, then we can now change, and we're getting changed into a kingdom. In fact, now we are no longer a holy order, instead we are a kingdom now, and can therefore take benefit of the new ideas here, which we should get in a second. So towards the new destiny and legacy of Jerusalem, there we are. And now you have pretty powerful Crusader state ideas. For example, that you get casus belli against heathens and a lot of other impacts, for example, Holy Land, production bonus for delicacies and rural production, but also garrison cost reduction, which is pretty important because you are on the front line and you will be probably forever, and some really nice benefits. And there's a little bit of a hidden thing. You can convert Jerusalem to, I think it's a French culture, and therefore spread your cultures here, which is more like historically matching to the Crusader states, of which people they were consisting of mostly. So you can have fun spreading your culture. I think it's Francienne or something like that. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Therefore, well, have fun and play Crusader Kingdoms if you want to, or expand into the old Crusader territory. And some stuff to finish off the video. Now, all these small things which were happening, like Italy HRE, all the impacts to North Africa, and therefore will definitely have an impact in the general outline of the political side, like how everything will develop. But also the civil wars can be a pretty powerful tool to either block you in your progress, but also it could offer you some chances to push through some reforms if you are willing to devastate your country in the aftermath of that. For example, if you are playing Poland or Hungary and you really can't get out of the gridlock of the nobility, you maybe want to try a civil war, but be very careful. Because if you lose it, it will be even harder to get out of everything. And the main purpose of course, the civil war, for example, is to slow down the reform progress, to make sure that nobody has finished all the reforms within 150 years, therefore giving a more realistic feeling that progress should be slow and that the nobility can in fact rise up against you, even depose you. It could even lead to a game over if you are not very careful. Therefore, be certain in what you do and how you develop your country, and maybe just take it slow. But it's also addressing, for example, countries like Rome or Byzantium, which will be severely impacted by these kind of changes because you cannot reform that quickly into your glorious state again. But maybe a civil war is the solution to that, who knows. Therefore, let's see what you come up with, and the full changelog will be available as soon as the update is available. See you then and have fun, and leave a like if you want to see more videos like that.